Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're going on a really fascinating journey to uncover the amazing truth about one of the natural world's most captivating, yet honestly deeply misunderstood creatures, the wolf. For centuries, folklore and fairy tales have painted them as these big, bad villains of the forest. But today, we're diving right into the hard science and the incredible biology behind these animals. Get ready, because this is going to completely change the way you see them.
Let me ask you something right out of the gate. It's a fun little question about intelligence. Who do you think is better at figuring things out? Your pet dog, who has lived alongside humans for thousands of years, or a wild wolf? It's a great question, right? You'd probably assume that dogs, being trained by humans for so long, would totally have the upper hand when it comes to puzzle solving.
Well, the answer might actually surprise you. Scientists over at Radboud University did this study comparing wolves and dogs in near-identical environments, and what they found was that wolves actually understand the principle of cause and effect far better than our domestic dogs, meaning a wolf can easily observe a situation and learn that one action directly causes another, kind of like a human child learning that touching a hot stove equals a burn. Somewhere down the line of domestication, our cozy canine companions just sort of lost a bit of that sharp, independent problem-solving edge that wolves absolutely rely on to survive.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, Meet the Amazing Wolf, focusing on gray wolves and Ethiopian wolves.
So when most of us hear the word wolf, we immediately picture the gray wolf, right? Known scientifically as Canis lupus. They're the largest wild members of the canine family, roaming massive areas across Eurasia and North America. But get this, there is also a super rare, incredibly unique species called the Ethiopian wolf, or Canis simensis. Comparing these two gives us a really brilliant picture of just how adaptable wolves actually are.
The Ethiopian wolf has this really striking visual contrast. We're talking a slender build, long legs, and a stunning, bright reddish coat. In fact, despite the name wolf, their closest relatives are actually jackals, rather than those bulky, gray wolves you'd find in places like Canada or Russia. Tragically, though, this beautiful animal is one of the world's most endangered canids. There are literally fewer than 500 of them left in the wild today.
Moving right along to Section 2, Exploring the Wolf Habitat.
Before we look at where they live, let's just quickly define what we mean by habitat. It's simply the natural home or environment where an animal naturally survives and thrives. Now, the gray wolf is famous for having one of the absolute largest ranges of any land mammal. They can adapt to almost anything from the freezing Arctic tundra to dense forests and dry plains.
But the Ethiopian wolf? That is a story of extreme specialization. They live exclusively high up in the Afro-alpine ecosystems of Ethiopia. We're talking crazy altitudes here, ranging from 3,000 to 4,500 meters above sea level. It's an environment defined by rugged terrain, freezing cold temperatures, and these sparse, grassy moorlands. It's a very fragile ecosystem, and unfortunately, human agricultural expansion is deeply threatening their only home.
Okay, Section 3, The Carnivore's Diet.
So we all know wolves are strictly carnivores. That's a big word that just means they eat meat to survive. They come equipped with these heavy, massive teeth that are perfectly engineered to crush bone and consume large amounts of meat very quickly when they make a kill in these harsh environments.
But what they actually hunt, that depends entirely on where they live. Gray wolves are your ultimate cooperative hunters. They work together as a highly coordinated team to take down massive animals like elk, moose, and deer. But on the totally opposite end of the spectrum, you have the Ethiopian wolf. Because they live up in those high-altitude grasslands, they hunt alone, or maybe in pairs, using their speed and agility to catch small rodents, especially something called the giant molar rat. It's a perfect example of how a diet adapts to the available habitat.
Let's dive into Section 4, The Truth About Families. Okay, we really need to talk about the alpha wolf. We've all heard the term, right? It's used in business books, dating advice, movies, always describing this ruthless, dominant boss fighting for power. Well, guess what? That is basically entirely a myth. In reality, a wild wolf pack is almost never a group of unrelated adults fighting for dominance. Actually, scratch that. It's just a traditional family unit. It's literally just mom, dad, the breeding pair, and their kids from the current and previous year.
As experts often point out, most wolf packs are families. It's way more about parenting than power. You see, that whole alpha idea actually came from early studies where scientists were observing wolves forced together in captivity. I mean, of course you're going to see tension and dominance struggles when you lock a bunch of strangers in a small enclosure. But out in the wild, the so-called leadership, is really just older parents using their life experience to guide the travel, initiate hunts, and protect their pups. It is a cooperative family system, not some cutthroat corporate ladder.
And that brings us to Section 5. Wolves help nature grow.
Let's travel back to the year 1995. By the 1920s, wolves had been completely wiped out of Yellowstone National Park in the U.S. due to aggressive predator control programs. And without them, the entire ecosystem just began to unravel. But in 1995 and 96, scientists made the incredibly bold decision to bring wolves back to the park.
And what happened next brilliantly illustrates a concept called a trophic cascade. It's like a giant biological domino effect. When the wolves returned, they didn't just hunt, they fundamentally changed the behavior of the elk herds. Because the elk had to move around more to avoid the wolves, they couldn't just stand there and overgraze the streamside plants. Suddenly, the willow shrubs started to grow back. And because the willows grew back, beavers, who absolutely rely on that wood, came back to the rivers to build their dams, which then created new habitats for fish, amphibians, and birds.
It's honestly mind-blowing. The return of just one apex predator healed an entire landscape. It just goes to show how every single creature plays a deeply interconnected role. By acting as the master regulators of their environment, wolves literally keep our ecosystems healthy, thriving, and perfectly balanced.
We've covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, from their brilliant grasp of cause and effect to the heartwarming truth about their family packs and their crucial role in keeping nature alive. So I leave you with this. The next time you read a fairy tale or hear someone throw around the phrase alpha wolf, how are you going to remember the true story of this highly intelligent, family-loving animal? Are you still going to see the mythical villain, or will you see the misunderstood genius of the forest? Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.